Today is 29th March 2023, Wednesday. This is Today Africa, and I'm Ami Hassan. We are back again for another new video because there is so much happening in Africa. But before I go further, I want to thank the people who are subscribing because it's a new channel. We are trying to pass on information all across Africa. So if it's your first time watching this channel, please click the subscribe button and share the video and like and comment. It will help the channel grow, which is free. So thank you. So today there is so much to talk about, but I just want to take a few information, just like a tip around, because I don't want to make the video long and to get people bored. But what I could say, there are some important factors that I actually want to talk about because like I always say on this channel, we look at situations in Africa, the way it's happening, and then we look at things across the collective West, whether these are things that are actually affecting Africa or not. So these are the things we are looking for, and see the actions of our leaders in Africa. So there is this interview I saw on DW, the German media, with the Kenyan president, because I want to talk about a little bit of the president of Kenya, because and then after that, then I'll go a little bit of Africa, because as a whole it's Africa, you know. So let me start. So before I show the video, the interview, which was a pretty much long interview with the president of Kenya, I just want to highlight some of the things the journalist, who is I always call the representative of the enemy, because whatever questions these journalists are asking these leaders across Africa, it's been staged. These are questions being given to them. Ask him this, ask him that, you know, so let us know the response. So the Kenyan president was in Germany just a few days ago because I don't want to style it, because he was there to beg, because that is what I'm saying, because these are the things affecting Africa. So he was given a red carpet honor, because those red carpets, like the guard of honor he was given, these are the strategies these people use to fool African leaders, making them feel important, which in real sense, what they think about African leaders, they are not important. So these leaders are just leaders that we could fool, use and dumb, you know, just like the way for them Africa is not a place that they should add value to. Africa is just a place that they go and get what they want. It's a place, it's a jungle for them, just like the EU foreign policy chief Joseph Borrell saying in recent time that most of the rest of the world is jungle. So like for them, Africa is the jungle, you know. But if Africa is the jungle, so I wonder what these people are doing in the jungle, because we're in here, the Europe or the collective West is the garden, but I don't know what the gardeners have planted in Africa, or you know, or what they've planted in Europe, and then they want to harvest it in Africa. So this is what I don't understand. If actually Africa is a jungle. So I don't know what you are doing in the jungle or what you want to harvest in the jungle to bring to the garden, you know. But let me go. So I want to take some points that sensitive questions that these journalists ask the president of Kenya, William Ruto. The first question was because in the first time when Russia invaded Ukraine, so Kenya condemned the invasion in Ukraine, which Russia invaded Ukraine. So Kenya condemned the invasion. And then the president telling the reporter that it is the UN Charter that they respect, and then the UN stands for peace. The UN stands for that every nation, every country should respect the UN Charter.
So our position has been, this can be resolved. We must be a rules-based globe. We must respect the UN Charter. That's the position of Kenya, and not just the position of Kenya, that's the position of the UN and any country that subscribes to the UN Charter.
I was disappointed when I watched this guy answering the question, like, what do you think? What makes you Kenya to condemn the Russian invasion in Ukraine? This guy is telling, because he was talking to the African people, like, we respect the UN Charter, and then the UN stands for that. What does the UN stands for? What? So, if the UN stands for that, then watch this video before I go further.
Do you think the presence of the U.S. military in Syria is illegal or not?
That's not an issue that we're dealing with at this stage. There's been a war.
But is that because it sounds very familiar. This week we talk a lot about the UN Charter, the international law, and relative resolutions. But it sounds to me a foreign military-based presence in another country without invitation sounds like something else to me, you know.
I'll leave your analysis to you. There's at this stage.
What's the difference between Syria, the situation in Syria, and the situation in Ukraine?
There's no U.S. armed forces inside of Syria, and so I don't have a. It's not a parallel situation.
You're
to
sure
some of the
there's no U.S. military personnel?
I believe there's military activity.
Yeah.
But in terms of a ground presence in Syria, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, 5 U.S. service members were injured in that attack. If there were no U.S. service members in Syria, how could they got injured? That's weird, right? Should I ask you about?
That is a UN spokesman cannot even answer a question. But our president, one of Africa's biggest economy, Kenya, the president, is saying the UN stands for peace. When you look at that interview with the UN spokesman, is that peace? He could not even answer the question, because I always say the UN stands for nothing. Allegedly, the UN stands for nothing. So if the UN stands for that, why is America invading countries and then the UN could not stop them? Why? So instead of this man, this President Ruto, to tell these people the United Nations itself is a problem to its charter, instead he says the UN stands for peace. What peace? It's a shame, you know. So I don't know which position the UN stands for in every other conflict we have seen across the globe, you know. So it's like Ruto was like afraid, or he's trying to pet the journalists not to talk actually how Africa feels about the war in Ukraine and the stance of the position of the United Nations and how the United Nations treats African countries, because that is what is expected of him to answer this guy, telling him what Africans feels or what Africa feels about the United Nations. But he instead pampering the journalists, you know. And then the second question the journalist asked the president, and then he says China has becoming more vocal and a peace plan country. So what do you think about China's peace plan in Ukraine? And then another disappointing answer from the president of Ukraine, Kenya. He says China should do more. What? China should do more? China has done, okay, in the first place, who will listen to China? Who will listen to China when China proposed a peace plan that was just thrown under the table? So this guy telling people China should do more, what else could China have done that they have not done right now? At least China has brought peace, or China is beginning to bring peace in the Middle East, which is a very important step, progress for the Middle East. What has America done in the Middle East? Dividing nations. Because America is the only country dividing nations, allowing nations to fight against nations just for what? America's benefit, you know. And then the other question the journalist, the enemy representative, asked him, he asked him, Russia is about to deploy nukes in Belarus. Because all of the questions that this president answered, it was all mess. And then he was asked, Russia is about to deploy nukes, tactical nukes in Belarus. And then he says it's a threat to global security if Russia is doing that. I am disappointed. Threat to global security? Okay. The answer I was expecting from this man, this president of Kenya, I was expecting him to tell the representative that, but if Russia is deploying tactical nukes in Belarus, but what is NATO doing? Because NATO has deployed all around the Baltic nation tactical nuke. So it is good or nice for NATO to deploy nukes all around the Eastern Europe. It's good, no complaint. But if Russia deploy tactical nukes in Belarus, it's a threat to global peace. This guy is not, I don't know what was wrong with him that day, you know, on this interview. So these are some of the disappointing answer. You know, these are disappointing answers that you don't expect from a leader, you know, who is directly affected by the policies of these Western countries, giving such answer to such question, that if Russia deploys nukes in Belarus, it's a threat to global peace or security. So what about the NATO nukes? Okay, that's not a threat. It's just like when the NATO chief some time back says, if China supplies weapon to Russia, it is just prolonging the war. So sometimes these leaders, you know, when they talk, they don't listen to themselves when they talk. If China supplies weapon to Russia, they are delaying or prolonging the war. So what are you doing? Because you supply weapon every day and night to Ukraine, but that is not a prolong. It has nothing to prolong in the war. But if China supplies weapon to Russia, it's prolonging the war. Sometimes these leaders, they don't listen when they talk actually. They don't listen to themselves, you know. And then we come back to the question of the LGBT bill that was passed in Uganda. He was asked, what is his take on that? Another disappointing answer for me. But if you guys agree with me, let me know in the comment section below, because I was expecting this guy to speak for Africa, because that interview, he was representing Africa. And then when asked such question, what do you think about the LGBT bill that was passed in Uganda? He says he can't speak for Uganda. He can only speak for Kenya. Guys, if you are a patriotic African and a leader of one of the most important states in Africa, speaking, excluding himself from Uganda, what is that? That is betrayal. If I was expecting him to answer this representative that yes, it is African values, and I don't think any other African nation will accept such practice. But he says, I can only speak for Kenya. I cannot speak for you for Uganda. So that means if actually Uganda is going to get into problem by signing such bill, that Kenya is going to run away from Africa, from Uganda, or other African nations are going to run away from Uganda. Let Uganda carry its problem. So Uganda's problem is Uganda's problem, not Africa's problem. So this again was another disappointing answer from Ruto, because you should speak for Africa, because the guy who was conducting that interview speaks for the globalists. He represents them. So all those questions he was asking you, he's not the one that wrote those questions. Those questions were given to him and to ask you. But you are there pampering these people. I don't know, because you went there to ask for help. German Kenya partnership. Mr. President, even if there is a partnership between Germany and Kenya, it will never be a win-win partnership. As you were saying, we have to coordinate a win-win partnership. No. An example, ask Ghana. or Ivory Coast. Because you are a leader, you're a president, so you should know more than me. Because Ghana and Ivory Coast are the biggest cocoa supplier in the world. And that industry is $1 billion industry yearly. How many percent was Ghana getting? 6%. 6%. Was that a win-win? No, it wasn't a win-win. But you are there pampering these people, advocating for win-win. That is why they gave you red carpet, guard of honor, because these are the problems of these leaders, you understand? Because they are so quick to fall for rubbish. You think you are important when they gave you that guard of honor. No, you are not important. It was just a way to get into your mind and for you not to do what Uganda has done. That is the problem. And even if you're going into partnership with these people, their partnership will always come with conditions. That is what you have to know. Because you will not go into win-win partnership. Your partnership has to go with condition. One of the conditions, maybe you should sign the LGBT into law, that it's legal in Kenya. That is one reason. Because they will never give you free partnership or free loan, free gift. It will always come with a condition. This is what African leaders have to know. But I guess they know. But the reason why they accept such things, because why? They benefit from the system. And the rest of the people, the poor people in Africa, are the one suffering. You know? So, this was an answer I was actually not expecting from Ruto, Mr. President. Because it was a disappointing answer. You know? So, your 60 years German relationship with 60 years Germany and Kenya relationship, it has brought Kenya to no place, Mr. President. Look at Kenya, look at Germany. What infrastructure, what development, what sustainable development has Germany brought to Kenya? Ask yourself this question before you are talking about win-win relationship, and then you are trying to get I don't know which partnership you're trying to get with Germany, which for me I don't see any future in that, you understand? Even if that will happen, it's going to be a win-lose relationship. You are having an opportunity on that particular interview, you understand, to speak for Africa, speak for every African nation, but you say, I don't speak for Uganda. It is a disappointing speech, actually, you know, because you have people who think they are superior than everyone in Africa, so therefore they must impose their will upon Africans. And then my last question, my last statement to you, Mr. President, which again, because you were lost in that interview. And then nobody asked you about your elections, even though, yes, the guy asked about the protest, violent in Kenya and so forth. And then you said, we in Kenya, we have had the best elections. Mr. President, that is not the best election. There is no best election that will go to the Supreme Court. If it was best, it would have been one blow. But the result was challenged at the Supreme Court. So how best is that? That is not a best result, Mr. President. It's not a best result. Because the Supreme Court as well was corrupt. Because they rigged the election twice after the NEC boss rigged the election and gave it to you. And then the Supreme Court rigged the election for the second time. So don't say it was a best election. There is no best election that could be challenged in the Supreme Court. So correct that your statement, Mr. President, you know. And I just have an advice, you know, because Kenya's problem is Africa's problem. Africa's problem is Kenya's problem. You know, the protest that is going on in Kenya today, you know, this is just my advice to the protesters who are demonstrating or protesting. You know, you have every right to protest or demonstrate. But I'm kindly asking the protesters or demonstrators, you understand, for you guys to demonstrate or protest in a very peaceful manner. Because if you destroy infrastructure, you destroy properties, you're not destroying Ruto, you're not destroying Raila, you're not destroying Uhuru Kenyatta. You're destroying Kenya. Because these are development to Kenya. So if you destroy assets, you destroy infrastructures that are actually important to the economic growth of Kenya, that means you are putting Kenya behind, you are putting Africa behind. So please, my brothers and sisters, you can peacefully demonstrate. And then the world could see, Africa, the AU could see the reason why you are demonstrating. Because the only mistake the opposition leader, the man who challenged the election in the Supreme Court, which was Raila Odinga, made, was for him to wait after 6 months to challenge these results now. That was the only mistake he made. Because from the very first day, the Supreme Court announced the result. That was the first day you should have demonstrated if you had wanted to. You should not have waited for 6 months after the result. And then this is happening now. So it's a very sad news for Kenya. But I really hope you guys, the Kenyan authority and then the AU look into this and fix these things, because it is important for Africa. So this is where I'm going to stop for Kenya. I don't know if there is any other thing I will talk about Kenya, you know. So I don't, again, that is where I end for Kenya. I just want to talk a little bit about the visit to Ghana by the Vice President Kamala Harris, because this again is another problem to Africa, because we've had first the Secretary of State Antony Blinken traveled across Africa. We all know for what, for which reason. And then after that, we have this woman, the U.S. ambassador to United Nations, Linda Greenfield, traveled to Africa, imposing their will, you know, at people across Africa. And then now we have the Vice President, Black African, visiting Ghana. For what? You know, this is the strategies these people use every time to fool African leaders. But some of them are not falling for it, actually. And those that are not falling for this bait, they should please educate the other leaders that are falling for such bait. Because Kamala Harris, in visiting Ghana, it's all about what? Allegedly LGBT. For the same thing, for Ghana not to do what Uganda has done. If you are African woman, I don't know actually, because I don't know if actually you are African woman, I don't know. Yeah, even if you are African woman, I don't know if you are from West Africa or East Africa or the Global South. I don't know if you are from that particular environment, you know, because there is no typical African woman will go to Africa and endorsing the Western values, because that is Western values, upon the African people. And then your business plan, which is trade with Africa, it is always coming with conditions. That $100 million, it is not for free. It comes with conditions, and some of these conditions we know these conditions. So there is nothing to hide. Every other African leaders, people in Africa, they know the reason why you are there. They know the reason why you're there. This is the difference between China and the collective West. When China goes to Africa, they don't impose their will. They don't select government. They don't choose government. They don't choose leaders. They work with every leader or every political power that is running the state. They work with them. As long as it has to do with trade, they work with them. But when these people who think they are superior, they are better than Africans, when they go to Africa, they want to choose the leaders, they want to choose government, and if they are not okay with you, we all know what happened. So that is the difference between this collective West and China. China does not choose, but you, the collective people, these Western powers, these people who think they are superior than Africans, they want to choose our leaders. That is the problem. And then look at the video when this woman went to the Kamala Harris, when she went to the I don't know if it was a museum where the slaves were being punished somehow in Ghana. And then she pretended crying. That is a crocodile tears. You knew about that long ago. Why haven't you come to cry? Why haven't you come to see what actually happened in Ghana? But because you are there today for your globalist agenda, for your neocons agenda, so you pretended crying. We can all see that was a crocodile tears. So you are not crying because you feel the pain that the African nation went through. No, you didn't. Because if you've actually felt that pain, you will not stand there and say, we all know you have been an advocate for the LGBT community in Africa. Because that is not our values. It is no way our values. It is no way. These are Western values. And they have right to do that. They have right to how you call it? They have right to show the values. But in Africa, it's different. So don't go there and cry. That is a crocodile tears, Madam President. You know, so Africa, we have to be really, really, really vigilant this time, because this is the time that they are in a rush. I have some video that I did few weeks ago when I talked about these people are desperate right now. And the reason being they are desperate because they are running to Africa. To what? To contain China and Russia. And one thing Africa has to take care or think about, and it's coming. One fine day, these people, they will want to take the NATO alliance to Africa. Because that is coming. You can see that in the agenda. You can see that coming. That because the moment you become part of NATO, you become enemy to Russia, you become enemy to China. That is coming. The NATO alliance, they want to come with that to Africa. It's coming. And it is of no goodwill. It is just to destroy Africa and use Africa. For these guys, Africa is just a place to get raw materials, not to add value to. So, I don't know sometimes where we have a whole continent with intelligent people, full of resources, but we are poor. We are complaining that these people are taking our wealth, are taking our resources. Who is giving them these resources? We give them and then we turn back again, complain. Because it's only few wealthy people in Africa benefit from this process. And the rest of us will suffer because of what? Failed policies, failed business deal. So that NATO alliance, it's coming soon to Africa. It's coming. Africa should take its time. And that is the reason why you see some of us, because trying to pass on information across Africa, because they have the media, they have BBC, they have CNN, they have all these media outlets, and everything on this media outlet these people are doing is all being staged. There is nothing coming out of CNN, BBC, Sky News, the Western media that is actually reality. Nothing. Let me bring one example that to actually know that these people, they lie too much, and then speaking truth for them, it's like drinking a poison. Let's take a look at the Nord Stream pipeline that was destroyed, according to Simon Hash, and alleged report that it was destroyed by America. But when you look about the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, when you look at that, it is so clear that the people who destroyed the pipeline, even before the pipeline was destroyed, they confessed. The president of America, Joe Biden, he himself said, if Russia or any tank or boat crosses the border to Ukraine, Nord Stream 2 will not exist. But have you guys ever seen that particular video or that scene on CNN, BBC, Sky News, Fox News? No. So imagine that particular statement. If that statement was made by the Russian president, the Chinese president, or Lukashenko, or the president of Venezuela, Maduro, imagine if such statement was made by these people. How CNN and these Western media will be passing around with all this. But not a single chapter of that particular scene, that video, we have seen on CNN. Instead, they say, in fact, it's Russia that destroyed their own pipeline. That is how dangerous these people are. What I knew today about the Western media 6 months ago, I don't know. Because my whole source of information before was either CNN or BBC. And I believe everything that was coming out of CNN and BBC or these outlets until I actually sat down and look at reality and look at what they are saying, I say, wow, this is a problem. So imagine if 6 months ago, what I knew today, I don't know. How many people we have in Africa that don't know anything what is going on today? So whatever they see, because most of us who lives in Africa, our source of information is just from CNN, BBC. So imagine the mentality of many people in Africa, what we think about Russia, what we think about China, what we think about India. So that is the work of the BBC and CNN. Let us take note. That is why we are passing on this message, that these are people, all they say, it's lies. When they tell you something, make sure you investigate well before you make a decision, and then you will know whether they are speaking truth or not. That is why some of us try to get a news outlet so that we could pass on information to our people. So this is where I want to stop for today. If you thought this video was useful, please subscribe to this channel. It will help the channel grow. And share the information, share this video all across Africa, because it is important for Africa. We need this information, our people need this information, and we need to stand firm and make Africa great again. So subscribe to the channel, make this channel grow. I thank you, and I'll see you on the next video.